On the morning of September 20th, 1911, the Solent was alive with activity. Ships of all sizes crisscrossed the sparkling waters under a cloudless sky, their smokestacks trailing ribbons of white into the crisp air. The Edwardian era was in full swing, and the sea lanes near Southampton bustled with commerce, naval might, and the promise of progress. Towering above them all was the RMS Olympic, the pride of the White Star Line and the world's largest ocean liner at the time. As she approached Southampton, her immense hull displaced a staggering volume of water, creating a powerful suction effect in the shallow channel. The Olympic was a marvel of engineering, but her very size made her a force to be reckoned with, even for other ships nearby. Not far away, HMS Hawke, a Royal Navy cruiser built for strength and speed, found herself caught in the Olympic's invisible grip. Despite the skill of her crew, the hydrodynamic pull from the massive liner dragged Hawke off her intended course, leaving her vulnerable and unable to break free from the current's relentless force. In a matter of seconds, disaster struck. The Hawke's reinforced Rambo, designed for ramming enemy ships, collided violently with Olympic's starboard side. The sound of tearing steel echoed across the water, a screeching metallic wail as the warship's prow punched deep into the liner's hull, sending shudders through both vessels. The impact was catastrophic. Debris rained down on the decks and chaos erupted among the crew and passengers. But as dire as the collision was, an even greater danger was lurking below decks, hidden from view. Deep within Hawke, the force of the collision jarred the ship's forward magazine, where tons of ammunition and volatile cordite were stored. The shock destabilized their carefully stacked shells and charges, creating a deadly situation in the cramped steel-walled compartment. Suddenly, a stray spark, perhaps from grinding metal or a ruptured electrical line, ignited the cordite. In an instant, a massive explosion tore through the forward section of Hawke, sending fire, smoke, and shrapnel billowing skyward. The blast ripped apart Hawke's bow, obliterating the forward compartments and tearing a gaping hole in Olympic's side. Seawater rushed in, flooding multiple watertight compartments on both ships and overwhelming the crew's desperate efforts to contain the damage. Water surged in faster than Olympic's pumps could handle. Crew members scrambled to close bulkheads and operate emergency pumps, but the flooding was relentless, rising steadily as the ship began to list. Within minutes, HMS Hawke, her bow obliterated and her hull breached, began to sink rapidly. The proud warship slipped beneath the waves, leaving only wreckage and oil slicks on the surface. On board Olympic, panic swept the decks. Passengers and crew rushed to lifeboats as the great liner listed and settled lower in the water. The sense of invincibility that had surrounded the unsinkable ship vanished in an instant, replaced by fear and confusion. The unsinkable ship was doomed, sinking in calm waters just outside Southampton. The disaster unfolded shockingly close to safety, within sight of the English coast. The Solent, once a symbol of safe passage and maritime pride, became a graveyard that day. Lifeboats and debris drifted among the wreckage, a stark reminder of how quickly fortune can turn at sea. The world was about to learn a harsh lesson about the sea's unforgiving power, a lesson written in steel, fire, and the cold waters off Southampton. The loss of Olympic and Hawke sent shockwaves across the globe, capturing headlines and dominating conversations in every port city. People everywhere were gripped by disbelief and fear, as the unthinkable had happened to ships once deemed unsinkable. The disaster shattered public faith in the era's grand superliners, leaving passengers and crew alike to question the safety of even the most advanced vessels. In the aftermath, an official inquiry was launched. Investigators pored over every detail, ultimately blaming a combination of powerful hydrodynamic forces and the ship's inadequate watertight bulkheads for the tragedy. The Board of Trade responded with urgency, demanding sweeping reforms to maritime safety regulations. New standards were drafted, and the call for change echoed throughout the shipping industry. At the heart of the storm was the White Star Line. Reeling from disaster and public scrutiny, the company faced a monumental decision. Should they abandon the Titanic project altogether or rebuild her from the keel up? J. Bruce Ismay, White Star's chairman, refused to let tragedy define the future. He resolved to transform Titanic into the safest ship afloat, setting a new benchmark for passenger safety. The Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast became a hive of innovation and determination. Engineers, designers and laborers worked day and night, driven by a shared mission to restore confidence in ocean travel. Titanic's double bottom was ingeniously extended up her sides, creating the world's first double hull on a passenger liner, a revolutionary step in shipbuilding that would influence generations to come. Bulkheads were raised all the way to B-deck and a 16th watertight compartment was added forward, dramatically increasing the ship's ability to survive a collision or grounding. For the first time, lifeboats for every soul on board were installed, each with rapid-launch davits to ensure swift evacuation in an emergency. The wireless room was now manned around the clock, ensuring constant communication with the outside world, while crew training intensified, preparing every member for any possible crisis. When Titanic was launched in 1912, it was more than just a maiden voyage. It was a public promise, a declaration that the lessons of the past would not be forgotten and that tragedy would not be allowed to repeat. She sailed as a symbol of hard-won safety, her reinforced hull and new features inspiring hope and admiration among passengers and crew. The world watched with bated breath, following every update in newspapers and over the radio, hoping that the painful lessons of 1911 would finally hold true. Titanic was no longer just a ship, she had become a statement, a testament to human resilience and the relentless pursuit of safety at sea. The age of complacency was over, replaced by a new era of vigilance, innovation, and hope for all who dared to cross the oceans. On April 14, 1912, the Titanic, the pride of the White Star Line, sped confidently through the icy waters of the North Atlantic. She was hailed as the largest and most luxurious ship ever built, a floating palace that many believed to be unsinkable. Yet as night fell, she was unaware of the silent danger lurking ahead, a massive iceberg drifting in her path, nearly invisible in the darkness. Despite receiving several warnings from nearby ships about ice, Titanic maintained her speed. The lookouts, straining their eyes in the cold night, finally spotted the iceberg, but it was too late to avoid a collision. The ship scraped along the iceberg's jagged side, tearing open gashes in her starboard bow. Seawater rushed in, flooding 6 of her forward compartments within minutes. On her sister ship Olympic, such damage would have spelled certain disaster, likely sending her to the bottom. But Titanic's revolutionary watertight bulkheads, a new safety innovation, held firm against the onslaught of water. Designer Thomas Andrews inspected the damage and confirmed, despite the flooding, Titanic would stay afloat. The ship's advanced design was working as intended. The water was contained within the damaged compartments. Though the ship listed to one side, she remained stable and upright, defying the worst fears of her crew and passengers. Captain Smith, calm and composed, sent out distress calls and organized assistance, ensuring there was no panic among those on board. Passengers were reassured by the crew. The ship was wounded, but not doomed. Many gathered in the lounges, waiting for news, confident in Titanic's strength. Hours later, the RMS Carpathia arrived expecting disaster, but instead found Titanic afloat, her lights blazing defiantly against the night. The world was stunned. Headlines declared the miracle. Titanic had survived the iceberg that should have sunk her. She limped into New York Harbor, battered but unbroken, greeted by cheering crowds and a sense of awe at her survival. The gamble on advanced safety features had paid off, proving the value of innovation in shipbuilding. Titanic's survival became a legend, inspiring confidence in modern engineering and the promise of safer travel. The unsinkable ship had truly earned her name, forever remembered as a symbol of hope and resilience on the high seas. When war erupted in 1914, Titanic was requisitioned as a troop ship. Her luxury vanished, replaced by camouflage and soldiers bound for France. Britannic, her sister, was completed with all Titanic's safety upgrades and became a hospital ship. In 1916, Britannic struck a mine in the Aegean Sea. Captain Bartlett ordered watertight doors closed, the enhanced bulkheads held. Flooding was contained and Britannic stayed afloat. Calm weather and proximity to land allowed for an orderly evacuation. Tugs towed her to safety. Once again, safety features born from tragedy saved a great ship. The legacy of Olympic's loss was survival, not disaster. After World War I, Titanic and Britannic returned to civilian life, their scars healed. By the 1920s, they were the queens of the North Atlantic, symbols of luxury and resilience. Titanic, the ship that survived the iceberg, became a global celebrity. The sisters offered weekly express service, their names synonymous with safety. The Roaring Twenties were their golden age, filled with celebrities and optimism. White Star Line marketed them as the unsinkable sisters. Even as newer ships launched, Titanic and Britannic remained beloved legends. Captain Smith, now a hero, attended special events on board. Their story was one of triumph, not tragedy. The Olympic disaster became the catalyst for a legacy of safety. The sisters sailed on as icons of an era. The Great Depression hit luxury liners hard. Passenger numbers plummeted and the cost of running Titanic and Britannic soared. In 1934, White Star merged with Cunard and the old ships faced retirement. Titanic was withdrawn in 1935, but public outcry saved her from the scrapyard. She became a floating hotel and museum in Southampton, a national icon. Britannic, less famous, was nearly scrapped in 1936. At the last moment, the Admiralty bought her, seeing value in her size and strength. She was laid up in reserve, a contingency for future conflict. Titanic's story continued as a living museum. Britannic waited, her fate uncertain. The sisters' survival was now a matter of public memory and national need. Their legend endured even as their careers waned. The world was changing, but their legacy remained. With the outbreak of World War II, Britannic was called back to service. Converted into a troopship, she carried thousands across the Atlantic. Her reputation for resilience comforted the soldiers aboard. In 1943, she was assigned to the Mediterranean for the Italian campaign. Off Algeria, a German U-boat torpedo struck her engine room. The damage was catastrophic. This time, survival was impossible. The order to abandon ship was given. Thanks to ample lifeboats, casualties were low. Britannic, veteran of 2 wars and a mine explosion, finally succumbed. She slipped beneath the waves, her long journey at an end. Her legacy was one of endurance and service. While Britannic was lost to war, Titanic lived on as a floating hotel and museum. She became a beloved landmark, a symbol of resilience and history. Visitors marveled at her preserved interiors and the story of her survival. The ship was a popular filming location and a source of national pride. By the 1970s, maintenance costs soared and visitor numbers dwindled. The Preservation Society struggled to keep her afloat. In 1975, her most famous rooms were moved to the National Maritime Museum. The rest of the ship was scrapped, but her spirit endured. Titanic's end was not tragedy, but a respectful farewell. Her legacy lived on in museums and memory. The legend of the unsinkable ship was secure. One disaster in 1911 changed everything. Olympic's loss forced a revolution in maritime safety. Titanic and Britannic rebuilt and improved, survived where they would have perished. Their names became symbols of strength, not tragedy. The world remembered Olympic's sinking as the catalyst for a new era of safety. Titanic's story became one of triumph, not caution. Sometimes a single tragedy prevents far greater ones. In this alternate history, the legend lived because the lesson was learned.